Okay, welcome everybody. I'm going to try again and see whether we can get coverage underway. I'm having serious technical problems at this end, but I've just restarted everything. So let's see whether we can get it under the way. I don't know if I can join now the competitors. Yeah, I'm in spectate mode, so there we go. Yeah. So we've got 17 riders online. Let's have a look and see what's happening action-wise at the front. We've got Bossoit just jumped off the front, but a small group following him. I expect the first part of the ride until we get to that big climb to more or less stay together. Having said that, looking at these two pushing off the front, they're pushing a fairly decent pace, so we'll work his way back through the pack and see how the riders are doing a little bit further back. So these are the chasers. Tan's a regular rider. I'm a little bit disappointed to see such a small field on the final event, but it's not an easy course, and I imagine it's frightened quite a few of the riders off. And as you can see, we've actually we've got one of the pace partners joining in the action, riding at 2.1 watt kilos. Hugh's behind. Looks like he hasn't even started the event. Rain's underway. And Quang He. And then Hayden is last rider, if you discount myself, on the road, but has stopped for the time being. Let's hope he gets going again. And then back to the front, you've got the two riders opening up a 60-meter gap on the chasing group, which I'll just pan back to behind them and you can watch. I'm just going to turn the pedals to ensure that I'm actually in the event now that we're successfully covering it. I don't know what was happening earlier with the feedback, so I had to restart my whole stream. But it seems like this weekend has just been a complete nightmare. Yeah, this is going, as you can clearly see, this is going to come back together. So I'd expect this group to get to the bottom of that first steep climb, and then we'll see what happens. Maybe they will. They will all join back together and stay together, but I doubt it. I think on the climb, like, you're going to find the stronger riders going off the front. And having said that, if you look at the watt kilos these two front runners are putting out, they're certainly trying to make this early break by pushing the pace up. I think it's too early for this kind of shenanigans. I think they'd be better served staying with the pack and getting some drafting going. But it's pretty obvious that they feel strong enough to take on the ride at this point. And they're just hitting the slope now, as you can see the slope gradient changing. It does get pretty steep, this first climb, so it'll be a bit of a tester, and it'll be interesting to see how the riders cope with it. Now the reason I'm having the technical difficulties, I think, with the broadcast initially was purely and simply because I've been swapping a lot of things around. I've upgraded the. You can clearly see from the graphical user interface. I've upgraded that. I've upgraded the studio and the software. I'm using different broadcasting software now. So I'm trying to get used to it, but it's not the easiest learning curve at the moment for me. It should be, because I'm pretty technically minded, but I have to say I've been struggling with a few issues lately. But we'll get there. It's all good fun. What I do like is, and I mention it every time, is I love RGT's spectate mode. The only drawback is that when covering an event, and we found this out yesterday, when covering an event, you have to jump on the bike every 30 minutes, otherwise you'll get thrown out. And sadly, that happened in yesterday's race. Now, in a Sportive, in a group ride, I can rejoin. But if it happens in a race, if you don't get on the bike in time, and yesterday I didn't, which was my fault, but if you don't get back on the bike in time, then you're kicked out of the race and there's no way back in. And so I ended up covering the first like 40 minutes of the event, and then that was it. Bam, I was out and I was done. And I was absolutely gutted, very, very upset, because it was the last race in the series. Points were on the line, and apparently I missed a really good race. And it's going to make making the highlights programs a little bit more difficult, because obviously I have the last race missing, and so I have to try and put together a highlights program without the final winner and the final race. I've put out a call to see if anybody else covered the race, but I don't think there was. So it's been James Ogilvie put on the series, and I'll now pan back as I'm talking. James Ogilvie put on the series, and it's been well received, but we haven't had the numbers, that I would have liked to have seen. And I think James is hoping that, this is the initial event, and next year it will take off, because it's been wonderfully organised. The courses are fantastic. All in all, it's been a very, very good series to cover. And I think, when you consider that some of the broadcasts have been 3 hours long, and I've covered every minute of them, I've done pretty well with my coverage. I've just had, like I say, a couple of issues, and yesterday was the worst of the lot, where I totally lost the coverage. So yeah, I'm making up for it today by not allowing the gremlins to stop me broadcasting and getting back online. The only thing is, the links that I've posted in the forums, I'm going to now have to go away and change. So what I'm going to do is we're just going to look back and see what's happening on the road here with the riders. And I'm going to join the front again and leave you be for a few minutes while I go and change all the links. So this is getting towards the tail end now. Thankfully, we've had some late joiners, so we are getting more riders online. We've got 18 at the moment, so that's nice to see. This is the tail end of the ride, with Quang He and Fane bringing up the rear. Oh no, Hayden's got going. So Hayden's Lantern Rouge at the moment. I expect him to catch the two riders in front, Quang and Fane, so they could form a small little group there, and maybe even join some of the others. So we'll see what happens. Hayden's not hanging about. He's pushing out a reasonable pace, so I expect he'll catch Fane fairly quickly. and then Quang He. You can actually see Fane behind Quang He on the road. So they're going to come together. If they catch Jan the bot, I think they'll go past him, because I don't think Jan's working sufficiently hard for these riders. And Oliver, you can see, is behind Hughes. This view allows you to see the riders on the road behind, so you can actually, as you can see in this view, you can see the riders that are catching other riders on the road, and they're going to join up together. This climb is going to sort out certainly riders up the front as I work my way towards the front. So here we go, and we're getting very close to the front end now. And Bossoit has just pulled out a 35-metre gap on the front. Now I'm going to stay with him, as I say, while I go off, and let's just switch around a little bit so that you can get a view of riders behind. And I'm going to now go off and see if I can fix the links in the forums. So I'll leave you with race coverage while I get off and do that. Right, so first of all, in the forums. So Okay, I'm back. I actually copy the links to quite a few different forums and Twitter, etc., to try and promote the events on behalf of OTR and James. So it takes a little while to fix. Obviously, people are going to be clicking on the links, and it would take them to the now deleted start of the race. So I've just changed all the links so that people will be redirected to this video that we're watching now. Okay, I'm back to the action. With Bosoit pulling out, he's now, if you remember when I left you, the gap was 30 metres. He's now pulled it out to 265. So he's not hanging about, but they are on the steep downhill. And this can easily come back together, I think. These three riders have made a bit of a break from the rest of the group, but if we zoom out a little bit and let's see if we can, there we go. So you can see there's a small group behind chasing. Thomas is in the middle, and then you've got Icy4 and Bosoit up the front. As I say, I'm a little bit surprised that riders at this early stage are pushing on out the front. I would have expected them to group up and work together, but he's a Belgian, so probably feels more than strong enough to go to the finish on his own. And it's his kind of terrain, isn't it? So. But I think we'll see changes. I don't expect the current race order, ride order to stay the same. I think we're going to see a little bit of swapping and changing around. And I've no doubt that we'll get riders dropping in and dropping out. Now, wasn't Krasinski riding the other day in the race? If he was, then he's doing well to ride in the. He's riding for OTR. You can clearly see the OTR colours there. In fact, I'll zoom in so you can see the beautiful jerseys they wear. I really think it's nice kit. It stands out. And they all seem to wear the same orangey red helmet. So it's very easy to identify the OTR boys and girls. I love the kit. And is this Ratio Racing? I don't know. Let's have a look. Because Ratio Racing were the other team. Yes, it is. So this is their jersey's Wattbike sponsored. So Ratio Racing were the other team yesterday that were fighting it out in the race, and it was a pretty good battle up until I lost the coverage. We had 4 riders from each team had made it into the breakaway up the front, and it was looking like a really exciting, interesting race. I'm so sad that I missed it. But there'll be others. I'm sure these two teams, and you can see them coming together now. Let's see if we can switch the view around a little bit for you. There we go. So you can see these two riders coming together from opposing teams, and there's a pretty strong rivalry between them. Very good natured. The race series was pulled off in a very competitive but nice manner. A lot of respect for each other, I think, because the race tactics initially from the OTR team in week 1 were absolutely superb. And I do suggest, if you haven't seen any of the previous races from this March Monument series, I'm going to be doing highlights program, so you won't have to watch through, all 3 hours of the races. But I'd recommend you go and check out some of the broadcasts on my channel, because the tactics used and the racing was absolutely stunning. And there's an alarm going off to tell me to get on back on the bike, which I will do. So yeah, I'd expect these two to sort of like um, have a bit of a competitive edge towards each other, but to ride together for a little while. Let's see what's happening further back. And then I'll jump on the bike. We've got Astor. So Astor's currently 640 metres in front of these two. But as I say, we're now on the, you can see from the graphic, we're on the downhill. So there's no reason why this can't close up again. We've got a pretty steep hill coming up, the next hill after this long downhill. And you can see Quang He is not far off Hughes, and they'll probably come together. And then Steve. Now Hayden, wasn't he like, yes he was last man on the road, and I said he was putting in a good effort. So he's obviously not only caught these riders in front of him, he's gone past, and he's closing in on the groups in front. So I'd expect Hayden to make a good effort to get back towards the front end of the race. I mean, this is the really steep section of the climb, and you can even see on screen just how steep it is. I'll try and pan around and get you a good, there we go, a good view of it. But this is a pretty steep climb. 10% that he's on at the moment. And there you get an even better view of it. This is the 8.2%. So it depends which view you're looking at. But this is our leader. And the gap has closed up. Remember, we had 260 metres. Well, it's down to 100 metres now. So these, although having said that, Simons is a late joiner. You can see from the distance he's completed. So he's jumped in. What happens when you're late joining is it drops you in towards the front of the ride. So he's jumped in on the front of the ride, and there's no reason why he shouldn't be able to catch up with the man out front, purely and simply because he's got fresh legs and he's done less distance. Stark is another late joiner. So now some of the late joiners are actually riders that have either had a drop out or have dropped out from the ride, and they've come back in again. I'm going to have to get on the bike at the moment, so let's just I'll spin round so you can see the riders behind this rider from the overhead view. There you go. While I just jump on the bike and check, make sure I don't get thrown out of the event. Okay, that's enough. It just requires me to turn the pedals and show my cadence. I'm hoping RGT will give me the ability to do these broadcasts without having to constantly jump on the bike. But anyway, there we go. Because I'm not actually riding at the moment. I'm full of cold, and I've had it for well over a week now. It doesn't seem to be clearing up anytime soon. So as a precaution, I'm not riding because of my chest. I'm feeling very chesty and congested, and it wouldn't be wise to be getting a chest infection. So Asta in the middle of the field. We've now got 20 riders, so we've had another two joiners, two riders join us, sorry, which is great. But these are two of the riders who have been in from the start. You can see they've done 13 kilometres. It's going to be a long day and a long ride for these riders. I mean, anybody contemplating this kind of route, you're looking at anything between 3 and 4 hours, and the time limit for the ride has been extended to 4 hours so that we can get all the riders home. It's pretty brutal. It's just short of 100 kilometres total distance, 99.8 I think, and there's almost 2,000 metres of climbing, so it's a course not to be sniffed at, even for the hard men. And the races, in fact there was only one racer yesterday, the winner finished in under 3 hours, just under 3 hours, and then all the rest of the riders came in over 3 hours. So you know, with the tail end of the race, I think coming in just under the 4 hours. So it was quite a day yesterday in the race. And today, you know, you've got the Sportive riders who are not going to want to be racing it. So I think we're looking at 4 hours again today for the riders at the back if they stick it out. And remember, Hayden was the last rider on the road. He's now closing up on the middle of the pack. Oliver's on the downhill section, as is the bot Jan. And Fane is currently last rider on the road. And this is your leader. So early days yet, but we've got a rider out front. I don't think he'll stay out front. I think the leading positions will probably swap around a little bit. And certainly with some of the late starters, they're going to affect the front end of the ride. So Simons is a late starter, as is Sanders, as is Noon. So second, third and fourth and fifth. So second, third, fourth and fifth are all late starters to the ride. But that's the great thing about a Sportive like this. You know, because it's so long and so hard, riders can drop in and out of it. They can, they don't have to ride the full amount. It's nice if they do, and certainly from a commentator's point of view, it's nice if they do, but they don't have to. And I think we'll see that today. I think we'll see riders dropping in and out of the course. So Simons is keeping the gap at 60 metres, give or take, and then you've got a 260 metre gap from the front end. So a further 200 metres gap to the riders behind, these 4 riders behind. But this is you can see the gradient it's showing 11.8% on screen. Memory leaves me in terms of how steep it does get this section. I think this may be the steepest part. And yeah, it's you can see it's now easing off slightly. But at 11.8%, that breaks up some of the riders, but it also gives the stronger riders a chance to close up again, and that's exactly what's happening. We're getting riders coming together, and don't forget, some of these riders, they haven't they haven't got the same amount of kilometres as the leader has in his legs. So that's the advantage of being able to late join. You can ride stronger for a little while. But it's not a race. I mean, don't get me wrong. The first finisher will want to treat it as a race. But then riders joining late, depends at which point they do that. I don't have an issue with riders joining so late so early in the race and going to the finish and overtaking the leader. And in fact, you can clearly see that Stark's asking group ride or race. So I'll answer him. There we go. So as I've just put in the comments, it's a Sportive, not a race, but you know, it's a race in everything but name, because you can't tell me that the riders, out the front don't want to finish first. Of course they do. I've ridden enough of these events to know, my prime goal was to finish high up the leaderboard. I didn't take part in them just to ride around some beautiful scenery. Well, I did, because that's what you do. But yeah, the whole aim of taking part in Sportives for me was to get the best possible position I could. And in my day, I was pretty good at riding Sportives, as well as organising one of the biggest Sportives in the UK, the White Rose Classic, way back in 2005 with my wife and British Cycling. I also took part in things like the Spud Riley Memorial, the Polka Dot Challenge, and various other big Sportives in the UK. And I held the record on a few of the courses as well for fastest time round, certainly on the hilly ones, for a short time. I mean, I really like the whole point of the White Rose Classic, which I put together and did the courses for. Went out and found every single hill in Yorkshire and then decided which ones to put into the event. And there were 3 distances. We're going to be doing a digital version of the White Rose Classic. White Rose Classic Virtual is coming this summer. But the real life event was 50 miles, 80 miles, and over 100 miles. And the over 100-mile route was a real beast. I mean, it's and let's just you've got the leader look out the front, but the riders behind are making a good effort to close in. But you can see Simons is catching the leader. Yeah, so going back to the Sportive and the White Rose Classic, because I tried to find, all the hard hills in my home county of Yorkshire, it took off almost immediately, because that's what a lot of Sportive riders really enjoy. They enjoy a tough challenge and they enjoy climbing. And certainly that was the case for me. So not only did I organise one of the best events, but I took part in many, many others. And I also covered them. I was a professional photographer back then. and so I used to go out and cover a lot of these events. Before I actually turned pro, I used to cover them, and then that's what persuaded me that I could make a living from photography, because I was getting so much work, not just covering events, but I used to shoot landscapes, wildlife, and weddings. So yeah. But my cycling photography, I really enjoyed it, because that's how I fell in love um, with like the big events, the big sportives, and the charity events. And I used to go out and photograph them. And then I got into photographing time trials, so that was quite exciting. And photographing time trialing is relatively easy. You just wait for the rider to come to you. You know, you don't have to. You find a nice a nice position on the course, usually a bend or a nice flat section, and or a downhill section even. You find a nice position on the course, and then you just sit there or stand there and catch every rider coming through. And I got some award-winning pictures from my days as a time trial photographer. So really did enjoy it. And then my other photography, certainly the wildlife photography, I had a gig where I was sent out to Africa to photograph the wildlife out there for a client, and that was a success. Came back with the pictures that were asked for. Won another international award. So back then, my photography was going places. Sadly, cancer, both from my wife passing away with the disease and myself having major issues with the disease, put paid to that part of my life and career. And for those that don't know the story, I ended up cycling around the world for 2.5 years, which was an eye opener, I'll tell you. Saw some beautiful countries, visited something like 43 countries, 44 countries, 4 continents. And I'll be honest, I've forgotten how many thousands of miles, but thousands upon thousands of miles on the bike. And that's where I met my partner, in Canada. I was cycling across Canada and we met in a hostel. So I owe a lot to cycling. It saved my life. Anyway, enough chatter. Let's get back to what's happening. MacArthur. Now he's another late starter. So let's just go back. These are the 2 front runners. I think they may well decide to stay together for a little while. And then you've got MacArthur, a late joiner. He's got 80 kilometres to ride if he decides to stay in the event. Sanders, he joined 5 kilometres ago. And then Tanner's obviously one of the riders that's doing the full distance. Stark behind him is a late joiner, or Stark in front of him is a late joiner. Be nice if they stayed together a little bit. Vonderlip, he's one of the original riders, so he's doing the full event. As is Desmeth, he's one of the originals, and he's 300 metres behind. So there's time yet for these riders that are sort of like spread out to come back together. But this is another late joiner, Brill. Now we had a lady Brill the other day. I'm pretty sure. Is this her or is this? No, that's definitely a gentleman. So yeah, I wonder whether they're any relation. She was the only lady in the event. Um, and then you got Noon, and Noon is another late joiner. Asta has been with us from the start, although it's actually showing him not done the. I think, yeah, he started just after the start. Maybe he got on the line just after the event started, or he had problems like I did at the beginning. But anyway, he's doing the full event, I hope. I've watched him in other events and he's managed to complete the event, so we'll see what happens. I think this is our only lady in the event today, Nice. Now Krasinski, I've already mentioned him. He's one of the OTR riders, and I'm pretty convinced he was racing yesterday. Zonka. He's one of the original riders doing the full distance, as is Birken. Hughes. And of course Hayden's doing the full distance, but he's trying to close up and get nearer to the front. Kwong is doing the full distance. Oliver is also doing the full distance. Then Jan is now last, and you'd expect that with a wattage of 2.1 watt kilos. Jan is the bot, is the last rider on the road. What time we got? 14:47. So let's go back to the front because I don't know what's happening with these two are just more or less staying together. But the interesting rider is Sanders is using V power, virtual power. That's why you can see his watt kilos is showing small text in red on the screen next to his name. Now you got Wunderlip and Stark riding together, and there's a bit of banter going on between them about pacing and this lot. 3.2 to 3.4, but both of them are working pretty darn hard. As you can see, Stark is saying it's not a race day for him, but he's certainly 3.7. He's pushing the pace along nicely at times. From the sound of from the tone of the chat, it appears that Stark is just taking it. This is him taking it easy, in which case he must be a very strong racer and rider, because if he's taking it easy at 3.7 watt kilos, that's not bad going. And you can see they're on the 10% slope at the moment. So yeah, this is a short, steep little climb. That certainly hurts the legs. So let's work his way back and see what's happening further behind. And there's my alarm going off. So I'll stay with Desmeth for a moment while I get back on the bike and turn the pedals over. Let's just there we go. That'll do. Okay. That's a nice high cadence. So Astor and Krasinski have come together. I'm catching up with Brill, and Nies is with them also. So there's no reason why they can't ride together as a bit of a group for the next section. Back. And there you go. You just saw. Let's you see the transition from the downhill to the uphill is pretty dramatic. That's I mean, you're bombing along, and the next minute you're slowing like a snail. It's pretty dramatic because it kicks this little climb. It kicks very quickly into the 10% section, as you can see. So it's 1 minute you're bombing down the downhill, and the next minute you hit this climb. It's a leg sapper, and there's many more of these. You can see from the profile. So this is a hard route. Full credit to all the riders taking this on. I'd love to have ridden it myself, and I would have done so had I not been full of cold. But there's no way I can ride a ride like this without really paying for it later. In terms of, I'd probably end up with a chest infection through my breathing. I'm just too congested. But very enjoyable to watch others riding it. And Hayden, I think is certainly taking the most competitive rider at the moment prize, because he's just, he's coming all the way from the back, and he's really trying to work his way through the pack. And this must hurt the legs. 10.7, and you've got a lot more of this to go. Quang on the downhill, so he hasn't hit the transition yet. I mean, look at the speed he will carry. We'll stay with him, and then watch the speed that he carries into the bottom of this hits the cobble section, and then you have that right-hander coming up. Let's see if we can just spin it round a little bit so you get a better view. No, that's not as good a view. That's a better view, I think. And he hits this transition area at about what, 40 kilometers an hour, and then all of a sudden, within a few meters, it's 10%. So this must really, in fact, more than 40 kilometers an hour. So watch this here. This is the right-hander coming up. There. Sharp right-hander, 8.7%, and then almost immediately 10.7%. That's brutal. In anybody's book, that is brutal. And then Oliver is now the last man on the road because you can't really count the bot. So last man on the road is Oliver. And let's see what's happening up the front again. So Sanders has now taken over. He's running virtual power. And what that means is he hasn't got a power source like a smart trainer or a power meter. He's running a cadence sensor and a speed sensor, and it's doing a virtual calculation of his power from the speed he's riding on the bike. There's been serious issues with this method of power output on Swift for many years, and in fact, people using virtual power are not allowed to count in terms of. It looks like he's struggling here, and not allowed to count in terms of the race results in many races over on Swift. So it'll be interesting to see whether RGT are coming up with a better solution than Swift, because Swift's allowing people to use virtual power. I mean, you see people going past groups at like 9 and 10 watt kilos and holding it for, an hour. So you know that they're misconfigured, and it wouldn't be fair to allow those riders into races to affect the outcome. But they do. They join races and they do affect the outcomes of some of the races, and it's a nonsense, really. I personally think that there's a place for virtual power for people that can't afford smart trainers and power meters, but they ought to have their own events, so to speak. They shouldn't be allowed to take part in a race and basically dictate the outcome of the race by their huge power numbers. And that's not being elitist at all. That's just being realistic. It's unfair on the guys that have taken the time to work hard and train. And here he is on the next climb. So another 10, as you can see, another 12.5%, 14.5. Forget how steep this one is, but I know 14.8. Yeah, I think that's it. I think it tops out at 14.8. I remember commenting on this earlier. So this has been a good ride from this rider out front. He's looking really strong. Your virtual rider behind him has actually left the event for the time being. He may well come back in. So Simons is once again the next rider on the road behind our leader. And then this is the late joiner. and you can see MacArthur. Is he a late joiner as well? He is. Yes, MacArthur's a late joiner, so he's putting in a bit of an effort on this climb. And then we've got one of our original riders, Desmouth. And Vonderlip and Stark are riding together. So if I zoom out, you'll be able to see, there we go. You can see Stark on his wheel. Well, not on his wheel, but just behind. So these two are more or less riding together for the time being. Then you've got Noon. Krasinski and Astor making up the top 10 at the moment. And don't forget there were was it 5 riders in a row here? So the climb is splitting them up again because you've got, now let's go back, you've got Nice just behind. And then Burley's a further 200 metres. But they were all together prior to this climb. So now you probably notice on the bottom of the screen that when I'm changing views here, the little white paddle, which is supposed to indicate where the camera is not working. It's not changing. I've just noticed that. And this has been a feature over this last few weeks. I have noticed, if you're listening, RGT devs, I have noticed that this just freezes. And the only way that you can get it back again is to turn off. So I'm going into my GU graphical user interface here, GUI, and I'm going to turn off the elevation map. So you see it disappear from the bottom of the screen there. And then when I turn it on, it should be updated, which it has, because you can see that Zonka is showing us on the downhill. And if I switch now to the front, you can clearly see the white paddle is working. So, and if I go to me and then go page up, we can get to Jan, the last rider on the road, and Oliver. So Oliver's on the steep, well, just gone over the steeper section of the climb. Uses here's Zonka still on the downhill after finishing that. He's just going about to transition. Actually, he's just about to hit the turn for the next hill. Passing Birken as he does it. So there's been a few bugs in the interface over the course of this series. I've noticed this one a few times and been able to fix it by, as I say, switching the GUI on and off. So, but it happens regularly. It'll happen quite a few more times during this broadcast. So it's not just a one-off event. It seems to work for so long, and then pack in, and you have to reset it. And the other main issue that I've had is the chat. We get and they know about it. When the riders look behind them, it sends a message in the chat with a hashtag and the word "look," and it can actually fill up the chat for a while. It's a bit strange. Now they were supposed to have fixed it, but I noticed it happened when the chat comes up again. You may well see it. It happened again today, so it's certainly not fixed. There's not an awful lot of chat going on at the moment. And Quang He, has he decided to pull over to the side of the road? No, come on, get going again. I hope he does. Stay with him for a moment, just see whether he gets going again. Okay. So it looked like Quang has probably given up the ghost. Let's just work his way back through the field. So Icy4 has got a fairly decent lead now of almost 700 metres on Simons. MacArthur in third place. And then this has been a good ride from Vonderlip. I'm pretty impressed with this ride because he's keeping it going at a nice pace, about 3 watt kilos, which is not a bad pace to ride a Sportive at. Noon, Astor, Krasinski, Nice, or Manhattan. So it does look like we've lost the rider that pulled over. Steep downhill section this. So now coming into the cobbles. Whoops, what happened there? I don't know why it does that. It's switching. I didn't switch view to me there. It switched automatically, and I when I'm following a rider, and that must be another glitch. This weekend seems to be absolutely full of glitches and bugs and mistakes. I've made my fair share of mistakes, but there's also there's also bugs in the system this weekend. No two ways about it. I never touched a key there, and it automatically changed view. So, which makes it very difficult when you're following. If you're following a rider and that happens, you often wonder, has he been? Has he had a dropout? Has he left the event? And the only way to find out is to try and go back. I suspect not. But we've had another rider drop out, so we're 16 at the moment now, riders. So we'll do a count up from. Let's go page down. Jan is the last rider on the road. He's right. I'm rider number 16. So Jan is 15. Oliver's 14. No, you see, there it's automatically highlighted me again, and okay, and then we got Oliver. So Oliver is what we got? We've got an that's why. I think what's happening as riders leave the event, it's flicking to me. Now it shouldn't do that, but it is. So that's obviously, it's either a bug or it's something which they need to fix. Because when a rider drops out and leaves the event, it automatically then flicks to me. I don't know whether that's supposed to happen. It's not something I've noticed in the past. So we've got, it's now showing 16 riders. So we've got a rider left and then come back in. So let's just, really struggling here. So I'm number 16, Jan is number 15, Oliver is number 14, Zonka is 13, Brill is 12, Hayden is 11, Nice is 10, Astor's 9, Krasinski's 8, Noon is 7, Vonderlip is 6th, Desmeth is 5th, MacArthur is 4th, Simons is 3rd. That's why we've had a new joiner. Pitts is now 2nd. That's what's thrown it into chaos. Okay, and obviously 1st is Ifer, but Pitts, as you can see, 0.2 kilometres done. Is it a lady? I think it is. Yeah. So Pitts has joined us. K Pitts, is that a Karen? Could be. So welcome. It's lovely to see the fair ladies joining us. Hopefully will stay with us a while. Simons is working hard. Look at his red figures, 5.1, 5.5. So working really hard to close up the gap, that's for sure. That was a good so I think we've got, judging by the chat, we've got Desmeth and Vonderlip not far apart. Yeah, there's 100 meters between them. So I suspect Vonderlip is trying to join up with, looking at him, he's certainly trying to close the gap. He's trying to join Desmeth. Very, very slowly closing that gap. And Krasinski's just out for a Sunday stroll. I mean, just, it looks effortless to him. It really does. He makes it look easy. Just looks like he's out for a Sunday stroll. Because he puts in some decent wattage at times, but, you know, just. There's our man Hayden again. So Oliver is last man on the road, 1,300 metres behind Brill. So likely to remain last man for a little while yet. Excuse me. But if we go back to the front end of the ride, we can see that Isifor is really riding this event solo. He's ridden almost the whole of the route so far out front on his own. He's had a couple of people join him briefly, but he's just doing his own thing. And judging by his wattage, it's just the consistency that he's riding that's keeping him out the front, because he's never really dropping off the pace, but he's keeping it nice and steady. I mean, there are riders doing more watt kilos than he is at times, but and there's my alarm going off again, but he's keeping it steady. You know, he's averaging over 3 watt kilos, that's for sure. So, okay, time to jump on the bike again. Let's just make sure we're keeping an eye on my watt kilos. It's almost time for a cup of tea, so I'm going to be. I need to. I just realised something else I've not done. So I need to. Yeah, I need to do a transition, and let's see in. There we go. Okay, I'm going to head off for a coffee. I'm going to leave you with the view of the leader out front, and I'll see you in about 5 or 10 minutes, because this is too long an event to just yeah, it's too long an event to sit here in the chair and not have coffees and biscuits. So I'll be back shortly. Okay, welcome back. I see that our man Asifo is still out the front. Let's have a look further down the field. It's currently in second place. But looking very strong. And then I'm surprised to see Desmef and Vonderlip have split up a little bit. I thought they might have stayed together. Maybe they'll come back together. We'll have to wait and see. But there's Desmef, and then a further 140 meters behind is Vonderlip. And then Noon is 900 meters yet further back. I'm just coming into the climb. Still. And once again, you can see that the graphical user interface, the paddle on the bottom of the screen, is no longer changing. So I'm going to have to restart the GUI again, which I will do as soon as I flick through the users here. So Oliver is currently last rider on the road, but we'll go back to the front, and you can see that the paddle hasn't switched to the front view. So all you need to do if you're using RGT and this happens, go into the control panel on the app on the phone and toggle on and off the full elevation map. So now it goes off. Give it a couple of seconds and then switch it back on, and you can clearly see now that the paddle is working, and it's showing it's showing the highlighted rider. And you can also clearly see that if I flick backwards, look to Pits, she's just coming over the top of the climb now and onto the downhill. So she'll be starting the downhill very quickly. But you can see the paddle is now working perfectly and showing you the position of the camera. As Pits starts on the downhill. And then Desmef is also approaching the top of the climb. The white dots give a visual indication as to where riders are on the screen. So it's a good when it's working, it's a good overview of where the riders are and the distances between them, because you can keep an eye on it and basically use that to flick backwards and forwards if you want to see, you know, like you can clearly see Vonderlip is closing up on Desmef in front of him, but and then Noon. Then on the steep part of the, I'm saying the steep part, on approaching the steep part of the climb is Astor. 9.1, look. It does get steeper here, so. And this view, the side-on view, gives you a really good indication of the slope. I mean, that looks hard. And this is the longest total climb that is on now. This is the longest total climb on the course, but there's some real nasty, sharp, short climbs to come. Right on cue, there's my alarm going off again. So I'm going to jump back on the bike. I'll just that's something which I'm currently in the process of asking RGT to fix for people like me that are broadcasting these events and not wanting to ride them. I'd really like them to give us a broadcaster mode where we don't have to jump on the bike for fear of being thrown out of the event. So hopefully that's something that will happen in the future. Nothing much happening in the chat. What it does is it occasionally refreshes the chat, but there's no new messages in there. So I am keeping an eye on it and I am interacting. In fact, that's something I haven't done. So I will now go away and check and see whether there's any YouTube chat happening. I was chatting yesterday in real time with some friends on YouTube. So let's have a look and see whether they've rejoined me again today. I mean, 13.7 there, so that's got to hurt the legs. Okay, back to sorry, I was just looking at my YouTube feed there. So let's get back to the action, see what's happening. As I lose the view completely. Not a good idea. Okay. This software is really a little bit finicky sometimes. It certainly is catching me out. I'm still learning it, and when I say software, I'm talking about my broadcasting software, not RGT. And it does occasionally catch me out. Okay, back with the leader, and we've had a new, well, just quickly look behind him, because we've had a new late joiner. With 50 kilometres to go, Chen has joined the party. So he could well close up the gap, although I don't think he is doing. No, he's not. IC4 up front is on the downhill and opening up a gap. But there's no reason why Chen, as a rider with fresh legs, can't close that gap if he wanted to. So Pitts is still effectively second on the road, but third at the moment, behind Chen. Then you've got Desmef, who left behind his riding partner Von der Lip. So those two were riding together, but have decided to separate. Now, often the reason for separating is that just one rider finds the pace of his partner not compatible with what he's wanting to do at the time. So it's not that they're having a fallout or anything. It's just that the pace of each rider is not currently matching up. There's no reason why they can't sort of come back together later on. So we've currently got 12 riders online, so attrition is certainly taking care of some of the riders. I think the most we had on the road at any one time was 20. So we've lost 8 riders. And to be honest, that's not surprising given the severity of this ride and the profile. Only the very committed are going to go all the way, and only the very strong are going to come in, do a section and stay with it. This is it's not the kind of drop-in ride where you'd sort of like drop in and think, oh, okay, I'll just ride for an hour easy, because it's not easy riding. And Jan is the pace partner. He's one of the bots. Currently at 2.1 watt kilos, he's last man on the road. Brill is the real live last man on the road. And in front of him by 1.5 kilometres is Nice. And then a further 630 metres in front is Hayden. And Asta's a long way in front. There's no way Hayden at this moment in time is going to close the gap on Asta. Asta's almost 3 kilometres in front. And so I don't see Hayden being able to close up that gap just yet. And it may not happen at all. Noon is a further 2 kilometres ahead of Asta. So we've got riders all over the road. I mean, I'll have a look in a minute. We'll go to the last rider and we'll go to the first and see what the difference is. because that's going to affect the broadcast and how long after the first rider comes home I have to remain with the broadcast for, if I'm going to capture every rider finishing, which I usually do. There'll be some occasions where I won't if I'm likely to be waiting for an awful long time. But so Wunderlip is currently 630 meters behind his previous riding partner Desmeth. So those two were riding together, but there's now 670 meters between them. And then Pitts is a further 1 kilometre in front of Desmeth. So it could be a while before Desmeth actually reaches Pitts, if he does at all. I mean, she could well hold him off. Sorry, it flicked forward too quickly there. There's the leader, and he's currently 1 kilometre in front of Pitts. So between first and third, you've got almost 2 kilometres, 1.8 kilometres. So those gaps are not going to change on this next climb and the next downhill, I don't think. They may well change as we're coming into the next part of the ride, as it starts to ease up elevation wise. But we've got some nasty little sharp climbs coming up as well, so they can slow people down. So there's Pitts, and she's making a good effort of it. You know, she is actually closing in on our leader, so who knows what can happen. Okay, what I was going to do, so let's do it, is we were going to have a look and see what the difference between, so IC4 has got 47.5 kilometers remaining, and let's now go to the last rider on the road to finish will be Brill, and he's got 60.5, so there's 13 kilometers difference. Now over this terrain, 13 kilometers, you could be looking at about 30 minutes. So there's a 30-minute difference currently between the first finisher and the last, possibly. I mean, that can change because there's so much of the ride left to complete, but round about, give or take, 30 minutes difference in the ride. So we'll work his way forwards again. I really don't know why more of the ladies, and particular, I know one lady, I'll mention you again, Kate. You really should be on these long rides, these long endurance rides. You're training for the race across America, so you should be coming along on rides like this, endurance rides that are really tough, and you know these would stand you in good stead. 4 hours on the bike, 3 hours would really really help your training. I know you're doing long mileage, but I think it would be nice to see you on these kind of events. Of Hayden. Let's go. I'll tell you what. Let's go back to me again and come and work his way from the back. So Brill is currently looking at 84 kilometers total. So not the full distance, but not far off. So 84 kilometers for Brill. Nice is looking at the full distance, and I really hope the last finishes. This would be you know, pretty awesome. 100 kilometers, give or take a few meters. So yeah, I really, really hope she comes to the finish. And then Hayden, another rider that's doing the full amount. Astar, a rider that's doing the full amount. He's got 52 left. A few kilometers in front of him. Now this is a rider that joined late, but he's still doing a significant amount of distance. 50, 85, 86. So by the time our Mr. Noon here finishes, he'll have done 86 kilometers. So I'm hoping he goes all the way to the finish. And that's a good day out, 86 kilometers over this kind of terrain. And then this rider's going all the way. This is Desmef, and he's been in it since the start. So 47, 48 kilometers still to do. He's just past the halfway point. And then this is one of his late joiners. This is Pitts, currently in second place. But if she manages to go all the way to the finish, then this will be a great ride as well, because she's got 47.5 to do and has completed 22.5. So that's not a bad day out either. That's going to be 47, 50. That's going to be a 70-kilometer ride. So and it's, when I say 70 kilometers, that doesn't tell the full story. Look at the profile, and you can see that it's 70 kilometers of hell. I mean, this is a tough ride. Even for somebody like me that loves hills, this would be a very, very tough ride. And then obviously our leader, he's got 46 kilometers to go, so he's 7 kilometers past the halfway point. Sorry, not past the halfway point, 3 kilometers past the halfway point. And looking good. He's been out front more or less the whole of the race. Sorry, I shouldn't call it a race. The whole of the ride. Let's put it that way. He is racing it, but we'll call it a ride, because that's what you're supposed to do with Sportives. And he's still putting out good wattage, you know, and he's been consistent. He's consistently ridden with an average that's just slightly over the 3 watt kilo mark. At times pushing it significantly over, but his average is certainly over the 3 watt kilos for the distance covered so far. I think I'm pretty sure it will be. I mean, obviously, yes, he takes it a bit easier, but you can see that even on a downhill, even on a steep downhill, he's still pushing out watt kilos, which means he's sat at home on his trainer and he's not just taking his foot off the gas. He's actually working on the downhills, and that's pretty impressive, because over such a long ride, you'd expect some riders to, you know, to completely take a rest. But he's not doing so. He just wants to, well, he wants to do the fastest time he can. Good riding. I'm impressed with the way that he's approached this ride. Sadly, some of the other riders that were really looking good have you know, have dropped out, and that's a bit of a shame. But I did say at the start of today's ride that not everybody will want to go to the finish. It's just too hard. This is a hard ride. And as we look at Pitts putting out red numbers on the climb, I mean, this girl's working hard. And then Desmef has done a really good ride. I'm quite impressed with the way he's tackled this. He's certainly left behind his partner. Well, I'm saying he's left behind his partner. He's definitely left behind his partner, because his partner has decided to go home. So he got Desmef, and he was riding Yeah. So we've now got 9 riders online. We've had another one leave, well, another couple leave the ride. Attrition, that's what you call it. It's certainly taking care of a few of the riders. As we watch Astar taking the right-hander. I mean, this is, you can see the transition. There he goes. It's not as bad as the other one where you turned the corner and immediately it was 10%. At least this one does give your legs a chance to start working as the gradient increases. There you go. So the slope's going up now, down again. So it's not too bad. It gets steeper towards the top though. And Hayden seems to have settled in. There was a point where I thought he was going to try and work his way through the pack, but he looks like he's settled in and he's probably just aiming to get finished today, which is no mean task. We've got 2 ladies on the course, and with only 9 riders. That's a good percentage of the finishers. I hope they both finish. And Brill is now the last rider on the road after the dropouts. So 9 riders left. 8 if you don't count, well, 7 if you don't count me and the bot, Jan. There's Jan. Can't count him. So 7th, 6th, 5th, 4th, 3rd, and Desmeth has taken over 2nd spot. So he's gone past Pitts. And the way that Desmeth has ridden this, it would not surprise me at all to see him closing up the gap on our leader. I mean, that would certainly take the prize for most combative rider if he was able to close the 2.2 kilometres to the front. But there's no reason why he can't, because he's looking strong. He's ridden a good ride. He's used the drafting with Vikup, was it? My memory's terrible. But with the rider that he was riding with, he used that time and then decided to go it on his own. So yeah, this has been a good ride from him, and he is closing the gap. Having said that, he is on the downhill, but he is closing the gap. Now you notice also that as I'm switching, the GUI at the bottom of the screen isn't working again. So we need to switch it off and back on. I think RGT need to work on this and fix this problem, because it's been like this since the beginning of this series, at least that I know of. So possibly even longer. So there goes the GUI, the elevation map, and then it's back on and you can see it's working now. So we get a visual clue as to where our leader is. And you can see that the next rider on the road, Desmeth, is starting the climb, whereas Isifor is just coming to the top. So he's going to pull out the 1.5 kilometres that he's got at the moment. He's going to stretch out again as my alarm goes off. So we'll get back we'll get back on the bike. Here we go. We'll just turn, all we have to do is turn the pedals. Watch my power appear on my phone and my cadence. And there we go. That'll do. Now, what happened yesterday with the race, I did set alarms, but my phone tends to get picked up by the children, and I hadn't noticed, but they'd messed with the settings, and the alarms had all been turned off. So I didn't get the alarms going off yesterday, and wasn't reminded to get back on the bike. So that's the reason why I was kicked out of the race. But to be fair, it shouldn't be down to having to set alarms every 30 minutes to cover an event. You know, there should be a feature where we can cover events without having to jump on the bike. And I know I'm like a broken record, keep mentioning this, but it is very, very important. If I'm going to, not just me, but if, you know, if us broadcasters are going to cover events on a regular basis, and RGT is only growing all the time, so I'm going to be covering more events, then it's something that we really need, because you get caught up. I mean, that's definitely what happened yesterday. You get caught up in the action. It was getting pretty exciting yesterday when I got kicked out of the race, which is why I was gutted, to be honest. I was really upset because the racing was just beginning to take shape. The tactics, the team, both teams, the OTR and Ratio Racing, had made a splinter group off the front, 4 riders each, and then there was a couple of other riders around them. I think there was about 12 in the front group. And it was really starting to take shape, the race, the tactics. You know, you had a second group of OTR riders behind, trying to close the gap, and it was really pretty exciting. And to lose it the way I did was unforgivable, really. And I'm still trying to process how I'm going to do the highlights programs without having the footage, because it's going to be incredibly difficult trying to fill in the blanks, because I've no idea what happened, and it looks like there's nobody else recorded it either. So I've no way of sort of getting a handle on what happened at the front end of the race. I mean, I can ask James Ogilvie from his point of view, but he wasn't at the front end, I don't think, towards the latter part of the race. So, and in fact, strangely, I saw yesterday in the results on RGTDB, James Ogilvie from OTR didn't even show up in the results, which I found pretty strange. I think there's a posting on the forum, the Cycling Users Forum, so I'll have a look at that and see where James actually finished. But on the official results, he's not showing in the list. So, okay, and we're now down to 8 riders, so let's work our way back through the field and see who's dropped out this time. So, Astar's looking good on the climb. And then we've got Aiden and Brill. So who's the ride? It's the... Is it the other lady that's dropped out? Yeah, it is. So Brill is currently now the last rider on the road. Okay, so last rider on the road. Next rider, Hayden, who's been in it all the way. Aster, who's going on. So it looks to me like the riders that are sticking with it are the riders that are doing the full distance, apart from Pitts. But I mean, if Pitts finishes, this will be a cracking ride as well. So I'm not going to call her out for not doing the full distance. And Desmouth obviously is doing the full distance. He's trying to catch up with Isafor. But as I mentioned, because of the downhill, the distance between the two of them has grown significantly. And I expected it to. But if you look, there's a pretty steep climb coming up. Our leader Ice4 is reaching the bottom of the hill now, whereas Desmouth is more or less just starting the descent. So there's going to be a closing of the gap as let's go, as our leader, as he gets to the bottom of this this slope and starts on the climb, then the gap is going to come down fairly significantly because of the speed with which Desmouth in second place is going to close the gap. So it'll be interesting when they're both on the steep climb to see how much the gap can come down, because currently it's 3.3 kilometres, which is way too much to close, but not if both riders are on a climb. Although I'm not so sure that Desmouth's on the steep descent now, but will he get to the bottom really before? This is quite exciting actually, before our leader gets all the way up the climb. What do you think, folks? Is our leader gonna get to the top of the climb before second place has even got to the bottom of the hill? You can see from the graphic is working. Look, I can flick to the leader and you can see that he's just about to come to the sign there. We can just see 7% it says, but it's a lot steeper than 7%, I'll tell you. I know for a fact this climb is steeper than 7%. So let's see if we can see if I can get you a good view of it. 6.6 at the moment, and he hasn't even barely started it. So we'll stay with him for a little while, and let's see how close Desmouth can get in second place. You can see the gap coming down because he's on the downslope. So from 3.3, it's now come down to 2.5, and it will come down a lot more than that. I expect it to be about 1 kilometre by the time he hits the bottom of the downhill. Although this slight downhill section here didn't help at all. But here we go, he's on the climb proper. You can see the percentage going up now. And you can visually see he's climbing, so yeah. And there he's biting now into the slope. I said it was higher than 7. 8.3% at the moment, and it goes even higher, I'm pretty sure. 9.4, there you go. 11.4, so why stick a sign that's 13.4? Why stick a sign 15.1? Okay, and the sign said 7%. Somebody needs to work on the signs, boys. You got it wrong here. This is exciting because I wonder whether Desmef will. He's still not on the slope himself, so he's still closing the gap. Let's just take a quick look at him as we watch. There you go. Look, he's still on the downhill. So we've got Isafor on the steep part of the slope. Sorry, and you've got Desmef closing, and he's got it down to under. Sorry, 1.2 kilometers, and I reckon he'll get it to under a kilometer by the time he hits the slope. So probably just about get it to a kilometer. And then the question will be, can he actually close the gap when they're both on the climb? This is that short downhill section as you begin the transition onto climb. So here we go. Just over, he's going to get it to under a kilometre. And just as I say that, there you go, under a kilometre difference between them. And it's coming down. Who's this? That's Brill. Don't tell me Brill's packing in as well. Okay. But this is where the action is. Brill, it looks like, has stopped. Maybe we'll get going again. We'll come back because this is where the action is. In fact, it looks like Brill, because of where she's showing on the leaderboard, maybe hopped out of the ride, either deliberately or was thrown out, and then came back in, because that's why she's in second place. Sorry, not she, he is in second place. So my guess is that it may be he continues riding. Hayden lower down is a good long way behind. He's not going to be involved in any of the positions up front. And we've only really got four, right? Because we've got one bot. So we've got four riders on the road now. Desmef is in second place. Hayden's in third. Sorry. Yeah, we've got three riders on the road because Brill isn't riding. So, yeah. Second place. Brill may well start up again, but isn't currently riding. And then we've got our leader. So we've got three riders actually riding. We've got four riders on the road, three riders actually riding. I mean, I don't count, so don't. I'm simply here to cover the event, and I'm not taking part in the event in any way, shape, or form. So my distance doesn't matter a jot to what's happening in the race. Okay, and the interesting metric here, folks, is, I mean, Brill is rather is stuck in the middle of these two. He's showing in the middle, and I for the life of me, I don't understand why. 35.5 and 36.2. So you've got about 700 meters between the leader and Desmef. And he's actually bringing it down. So Desmef is the stronger on the climb at the moment. He's bringing the distance down, well, albeit slowly, but it is coming down. If you look at the top figure of 724, 722 now, he's slowly bringing it down. So he's actually working, even though he's not putting out the same watt kilos as Isafor up the front, he's still bringing the gap down. So that tells me that he's probably a lighter rider, that the reason why Isafor is showing more watt kilos, but actually being caught is because he's the heavier rider and Desmeth is the lighter rider. So therefore his watt kilos that he's putting out is going to be less. That's just my take on it. That's the way I'm reading it at the moment. And he is definitely bringing the gap down. If you remember, when he was at the top of the slope and Isafor was at the bottom, there was 3.2 kilometres difference between them. That's now down to 680 metres, give or take the odd metre. And what's happening as well, if I page up to the gap is going to grow again significantly once Isafor gets over the top, because his chaser will still be on the slope and it's pretty steep towards the top, as you can see. So the gap's going to grow again, but the remaining terrain definitely lends itself to a catch, because there's a couple of short, sharp climbs where you can pull back a bit of time, and then it's more or less downhill until you get into that final section of climbs before the run into the finish, which is all downhill. So yeah, there's real chances of a catch here. I said it got steeper towards the top. You can see it's 12% now. And this is where the gap's going to grow, because although Desmeth has brought the gap down nicely, he's still got this section to complete, whereas Isafor any second now is going to be going over the top and running off the front. So the gap's going to grow again. Let's check on what's happening behind. So there's, currently got it down to 640 metres, which is a fantastic effort when you consider how far back in the field Desmeth was. To close that gap up. Ride of the day for me. Well, it's a toss-up between him and first place, to be honest, because Isafor has been out front all day, so he's done a superb ride. So it's a toss-up between them two for ride of the day. Brill is still showing on the side of the road stopped, and I suspect not going to get going again. So that's a real shame. I'm fairly convinced Hayden will go all the way to the finish. You don't do the kind of distance and effort that this guy's done. And don't forget, earlier on he was siving his way from the back. He was last man on the road, and he sived his way through the groups to where he is now. So there's no way, I just can't see him packing in. He's going to go all the way to the finish. And full credit for doing that. This has been a good ride. But he's last man on the road. You've got Jan, who's the bot. So last man on the road is Hayden. And we're down to basically three finishers, which is pretty poor, to be fair. I mean, it's not poor in terms of the three that are going to finish, but in terms of, the event, that's a bit disappointing. And you could forgive a commentator for saying, all right, well, I watched the leader come in and then that's me done. But I'm going to stay with the action for them all, even though there's a significant difference between, well, there's 8 kilometres difference between, well, a lot more if you count me. Let's have a look. 34 kilometres to go, 35 and 42. So 8 kilometres difference. So yeah, that's not bad. That's doable for me. And to be fair on Hayden, I wouldn't not want to watch him coming into the finish, because this has been a good ride. I can't stress enough. Last man on the road, and although there's nobody left now, so he's still last man on the road, there was lots of people on the road earlier on, and he pulled his way through them. So a really good ride. In fact, I think all three of the riders that are left on the road are all in contention for ride of the day. Certainly, Desmond has done a wonderful ride. Very impressed with him, and if he catches up with the leader, I'll be even more impressed. I'm not so sure he's going to do so though, because they get into the there's still plenty of time. Yeah, it could still. Sorry, I'm going the wrong way. Because I suppose he's looking a little bit tired. Oh wait, hi guys, see you next. What do you mean see you next? You're not gonna pack, surely. Don't tell me he's leaving too. No, come on, not with 33 kilometres to go. No, you got to finish. Well, I'm going to be really, really disappointed if he pulls out, because he's done a great ride. Come on, get it going. He has. He's done a fantastic ride. Why would he want to? Why would he want to not finish? I mean, I know the course is brutal. Why would you do all that distance and then not do the final third? He's 2/3 of the way to the finish. Come on, mister. Definitely looks like there's a problem. The fact that he's called it out tells me that this is not a technical problem. I think he's just decided he's done enough. Because looking at his power numbers now, this looks like a warm down spin. Oh, he has to go. Okay. Sorry to lose you, mate. Okay, so that leaves two riders. Well, at this rate, there's going to be no difficulty picking rider of the day, is there? It's likely to be the only rider that gets to the finish. And that's not. I'm not criticising you. For I've got children, so I know what it's like when you have to go. But I'm just very sad that so many people have pulled out of the event. It's just, yeah. I really would have liked to. Oh, and there's my alarm going off. So I have to jump back on and just turn the pedals. Well, so this is obviously the reason why you're seeing such low power numbers from Isophore is because this is like him spinning his legs. So he's just spinning his legs here as he finishes off his ride. It's not that he's continuing with the ride. Okay. And as he says, I'm sure we'll see him again. This has been a good performance out front, all the way. So a really good performance here. So let's check what's happening behind him. There's Desmeth. Obviously now closing up the gap because the other riders stopped working. So I didn't see you as winning the event this way, Desmeth, but I did see you possibly catching. So well done, mate. This has been a really good ride. Nice bike as well. So oh, it looks like we've got another late joiner. We've got Bill there, you got Hayden, but where's Sagers? Sagers. There we go. So Sagers has just joined us. He's just done half a kilometre. So does he plan on riding the final 32 kilometres? He's certainly putting in some good wattage. And you know what could happen here if he catches up with Desmeth, the two Belgiums together, they could work together. And it looks like he's going to do. So there's our leader, just out front. But Sagers is putting in some really good wattage, so I expect he's going to close the gap very, very soon. There you go. Now then, will Desmeth try and get on his wheel and ride with him? I think he will. Yeah. So these two could well go to the finish together. Now, normally, if there was a large group, I would say this was out of order. Somebody joining with just like 30 kilometers to go and pulling the leader along. But there isn't an issue with this at all because we've just no riders to finish. I mean, this is crazy. I'm at a loss to understand what's going on here, and to see so few riders on a Sportive of this nature. The last one in the series, it's just, and yeah, I know the course is terribly difficult, but I wish I was well enough to ride it. And I think what will probably happen is I'll probably get the magic roads and ride these courses that I've missed sometime in the future. Oh, excuse me. I'm full of cold, and there's no way I could have even contemplated taking on these kind of challenges at the moment. Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do then. As Sega's gone on ahead, let's just spin the camera around and have a look. Yeah, Sega's has gone on ahead. Now they may well join forces, these two. Who have we got behind? Brill is still on the side of the road, so I don't see Brill changing. And then obviously Hayden is last man on the road, but I feel like he's going to finish. I don't think he's going to pack in. And if you can hear me, Hayden, good ride, mate. So while we're, in fact, I'll stay with Hayden for a little while. While I'm staying with Hayden and watching him riding for a few minutes, I'm going to give a call out to our sponsors and explain why they're sponsoring and what's happening with the sponsorship. Torm.cc, of which you can see I'm proudly wearing one of their merino wool jerseys. Fantastic bit of kit, by the way. And I'm not saying that just because I've got one. I'm saying that because I've, in my time, I've ridden the very best cycle kit. I was sponsored by Liege and Wahoo. I've worn the Rafa kit. I was given free Rafa kit to ride in the transcontinental race after I'd completed my my record breaking Swift distance challenge. I broke the record there with 1600 kilometers. So I've worn the Rafa merino wool kit. I've worn Liege kit and the Assos kit, and I have to say that by far this is the best jersey I've ever owned. From a comfort point of view, and also I don't know if I can show you. Well, no, I won't show you now. We'll do it in the highlights program. I'll show you the rear of the jersey and the pockets and the zippers and everything in the highlights program. But stunning bit of kit, really very, very comfortable. And for anybody doing long rides, and particular for any endurance riders out there, merino wool is what you should be looking at, because you can wear it multiple days. I remember wearing my merino wool in the TCR for 10 days. But you can wear it multiple days and not smell. So it doesn't hold the smelly sweat that you get with normal cycle jerseys. And so Torm Cycle Clothing are actually sponsoring this whole series and offering spot prizes to different categories within the rides. Most combative rider, rider who's been the best team player, maybe the best rider. I don't know the criteria. That's still to be determined by Paul from Torm Cycle Clothing. But there's going to be spot prizes on offer. When I do the highlights programs, we'll probably get a better idea of who's in the running. And so they deserve great credit for coming on board and sponsoring the series. And that's why I'm giving them a shout out. So if you haven't already done so, in fact, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll see if let's see if I can pull up the website, just and let you have a quick look at the website, and then if I can pull it up on my let's see, can we I haven't worked out yet how to integrate a browser into this new software I'm using. So we'll have to forego that. But basically, if you go to torm.cc, torm.cc, and have a look at the the current range. They've got some new clothing coming in, I saw on the website the other day. And, you know, I'm not saying you have to go along and buy it, but please support them. Give them a thumbs up, give them a like, because for them to come on board and support us in these kind of events is pretty special. They're only a very tiny outfit, and yet they're prepared to come on board and show support. So I think, full credit for doing that. Okay, let's get back to the action and see what's happening. We've only a few riders on the road, so there's not that much action to watch anymore, but we'll see. And let's just, okay. Oh, there we go. There's my new transition. So we're just basically watching our last rider on the road, Mr. Hayden. He's got 35 kilometers still to ride, and then our real rider out front is Desmeth. So there's only two riders on the road now of any great note. That's not to take away from Sagers, who's late joined us, but obviously Sagers isn't in the running for any prizes or the competition because of his late join. But it would still be nice to see him going to the finish. Whoops, sorry. Let's just spin round and get a good view. There we go. So Sagers is currently 6 kilometers in with 26 left to do to the finish. But the man that we really want to see finish is Desmeth, because he's done the full distance and he's 27 kilometers left to do. So I imagine 27 kilometers, he's going to come in round about the 3:10, 3:15 mark, which is about 10 minutes slower than the racers came in yesterday, and they were pushing out 4 watts for the majority of the ride. And then of course we've got Hayden, who I will wait to finish, and he's got 35 kilometers. So what was the difference? 26.27, shall we say? 8 kilometer difference between the two of them, give or take 7 or 8 kilometers. So yeah, I will wait for Hayden, who's on the really look at the steepness of that slope. I would definitely wait for him to come into the finish. Yeah, and really digging deep there. Did you see the red numbers? That means that he's very close to, there you go, there's the red numbers. So he's working at threshold there. Pretty impressive. After having ridden 64 kilometres of this kind of terrain, to still be able to put out that kind of effort. Desmeth is obviously he's rolling forwards into the next climb. This has been a good ride by this man. Very impressed. So I'm going to be putting together highlights videos of the series. I'll do a highlights video of week 1, week 2, week 3 and week 4. So for the sportives and for the races. Because I think there's too much to put into I want to keep the highlights videos pretty short for people to watch in their entirety. So in order to do that, that's why I'm now going to be splitting the highlights up into shorter sections, rather than if I tried to put all the highlights together for all the Sportive, shall we say, we're looking at well, two Sportives, because I wasn't able to cover the Saturday Sportives, but two Sportives over 4 weeks is 8 Sportives, and that's just too much to condense into one video, or I feel even two. So I'm going to split them up into weeks. So we're going to have 4 highlights of the Sportives, and we're going to have highlights of the racing. Now I'm not sure how many racing videos I will do highlights wise. It all depends on the fact that I missed yesterday's race. We'll see, 1 or 2. But again, I want to keep it short, so I might even go for 3. I might even go and cover, cover all the races individually, but as a highlight, because there's certainly enough good action in the racing footage to put together, like a 15-20 minute video. Okay, what's happening up front? So Sagas has slowed down a little. I'm just amazed that he's joined the party and decided to ride by himself off the front. That, to me, that seems nonsensical. But maybe he's just doing this just to test his legs and as a bit of a leg spinner. I don't know. I don't know the reason why you would join an event so late and then shoot off and ride on your own. It just doesn't seem a natural thing to do to me, but when I saw him appear, I just assumed he was coming to work with his countrymen. So Desmouth is on the steep section of this climb. Oh, I'm tired. This has been a long broadcast, folks. Hard work. It's really difficult when you've only got a couple of riders. You're trying to find something to say. So a lot easier covering. Can't even get my words out. A lot easier covering events when you have a larger field. There's a lot more to talk about, and there's tactics going on, and you can do a real breakdown. But there's not an awful lot to say about just 2 riders on the, well, 3 riders now, but 2 that are doing the distance. Other than what I've already said, that both riders left on the road that are going the full distance are doing really good rides. Although Hayden does look like now like he's getting tired, because I notice his watt kilos has dropped a little bit. Having said that, he is on the downhill, so and don't forget how much work Hayden put in the early part of the ride. So he's on the steeper part of the downhill now. is the I'm assuming that the GUI is not working anymore. Let's just switch. Oh, it is. It's working. Right. I just didn't think it was updating, but it is. That's good news. So we've got 22 kilometers by Sega's out front, and then whoops, the wrong way. And then Desmef has got 23.4 kilometers. So yeah, there's a kilometer and a half difference. But we've only got the free riders to watch into the finish now. I'll probably have to jump on the bike one more time. Oh, I know what I can talk about. Yes. For those new to the broadcast or watching for the first time or that haven't heard me discussing it before, this March Monument series kicked off with the new graphics pack from RGT Magic Roads. Previously, we'd had the sort of like summer graphics pack with the mountains and cliffs and this in, but this has been a new pack that came out just in time for this series and just in time for the monuments in real life. You know, the Paris-Roubaix, Liège-Bastogne-Liège, etc. That's why James came up with the idea of doing them at this time of year. And the graphics pack is called Spring in Europe. It includes what you can see on the screen at the moment, the cobbles. So that's a really nice feature which wasn't in the previous graphics pack. But also, if you look at when the riders get onto the tarmac, you've got a different look and feel to the tarmac as well. It's more like what you would see in real life, the broken tarmac with cracks and potholes in. You've got more buildings, I think, where they appear in real life. They're digitized in the representation, and it just looks very much like the kind of terrain that you would go through if you were doing the rides for real. It's a very nice graphics pack. If I swing the camera round, and let's get in some more of the sky. There we go. You never see the sun in this graphics pack. You only ever see the dark clouds and the rain, which this is the first time we've seen rain in RGT, to my knowledge anyway. So, oh, what's that? What's the sign? What we got? 2%. Okay, and this is what I was saying about the tarmac. Look, can you see how cracked and broken it is with the puddles? Oh, my name on the road, look. So it's pretty impressive, you know, with the trees and the hedges at the side of the road. There's the alarm going off again. That's to tell me to get back on the bike. So it's a pretty nice new graphics pack, and we're still seeing what's involved with it. But I followed this event now since it was released, and I find it pretty impressive. I think it's a good addition. I mean, we have the real roads like the Dirty Reaver and the Cap Fomenta Climb, which are very, very nice graphics on RGT. But in terms of real roads, this looks really nice if you manage to find events like these events that that can make you think that you're in the same part of the world as the event you're supposedly riding. And that's exactly what this graphics pack does for these March monuments. So well done, James, for getting these done in time, and Samir's Magic Roads. Well done, Samir, for digitising them. I think it's been a fantastic series. Very, very impressed with it, and just only disappointment for me is that not more riders took part. The races weren't too bad, but it's been a pretty low turnout, and that's a bit of a shame because it deserved better. It's been a really good series, and to find, like here, I'm only going to get 2 riders finishing the final Sportive, going the full distance. That to me is very disappointing. But we'll be back next year with the same series. James has already announced that, so I'm looking forward to this series growing and bringing in more riders next year. It certainly deserves it for all the hard work that's gone into it. And a lot can happen in a year, so who knows? RGT could have a lot more subscribers, and we could have more riders looking to take part. Okay, I better jump on the bike. I need to make sure I plug my phone in. Let's just ensure, check again, get back on the bike and check that way. There we go. Okay, so we're coming into the finish. How much more have we got? Let's have a check on the leader. 15 kilometers by Sagers. 18 from our first real finisher. I bet he never thought he was going to be first man home today. I mean, that's just I really would have liked to have seen the other riders staying in the ride, because I think this would have been an interesting battle coming into, his name was Isafor, who had to leave because of his child, but I really wish he'd been able to stay in the ride. I'm loath to call it a race, although it would have turned into a race between these two. And it would have been interesting to see, because Desmeth was definitely catching. I mean, he pulled back a huge gap at one point, more than 5 kilometres behind your leader. So he pulled back a huge gap to close up. And I would have loved to have seen whether he could have finished first, basically taken the win. I think that would have made for very exciting viewing. I was certainly getting excited when he started to close the gap, because that's what you want to see when you're doing a broadcast like this. You want to see, a bit of action and a bit of combativity. So I was looking forward to it, and to see Isafor have to sort of like end his ride was a little bit sad, because look at the way he's riding now. He's on the steep downhill, and he's still turning the pedals and still putting out the power. His cadence is crazy. So yeah, it's just, his work ethic has been really admirable, really has. And you can say the same about Hayden's work ethic as well, because don't forget, he came from the back of the pack, last man on the road. I expected the majority of the field to drop out. I'll be honest, because this is like, anybody spending 3 hours plus on a trainer, uh, that's seriously hardcore. It's not like riding outside. You can do 100 kilometers riding outside a lot easier than what you can do 100 kilometers riding indoors on a trainer. And I can say that with complete authority, because you know, I, I'm a guy that spent 4 days riding on a trainer. So I know what I'm talking about. It's a lot easier cycling outdoors than what it is cycling indoors. You've got to have the right mindset to do long distances indoors, and to be an endurance athlete indoors as well as outdoors is extremely difficult, because of the mental aspect of it, the mental challenge. Not many people are capable of handling the boredom. I mean, I never got bored. But many people will, and many people do. And what you have to do when doing ultra distances, like, say for example, you're doing a 24 hour, of which I did quite a few, and um, broke a few records along the way. But if you're doing a 24-hour indoor ride, you need to be able to switch off your brain. You're basically just on autopilot. You take your brain out. That's what I used to tell people. I just used to say, no, just shut it down. Don't even have to think. It's just automatic, and that's what it has to become, because otherwise, if you start thinking too much about what you're doing and what's going on and everything else, you never get through it. So even doing a 3 hour ride on a trainer, I think, is requires a little bit more than the majority of leisure riders have got. It's a bit special. And doing 4 hours, well, And what we've got 3 hours and 5 with Hayden, and he's got 24 kilometres to go. So do the math yourself. He's going to be coming up towards the almost 4 hour point, and that's a long day in the saddle. Sega's on the climb. Now is he slowing down, or is Desmeth just simply catching him? Again, just looking so strong towards the end. 14 kilometres to go, so not long here. I said about 3:15, but it's probably going to be a little bit over that now. Yeah. So we got almost 10 kilometre difference between them, and that's the difference in speed. So, and still putting out good wattage on the climbs. Just, yeah, good ride. I'm tired. I'll be honest, I'm really tired. It's been hard work. Just, looking forward to a bit of tea as well. So I'll be joining the children as soon as I finish this broadcast and having us tea, and then putting them to bed. Desmeth has got, so there's not much distance between first and second now. It's closed the gap nicely, and this is where the gap is really. But Hayden is still putting out good wattage on the climb as well, so you can't fault the lad. Okay, you can probably see the mouse moving around on screen, and you can see from the graphic where the riders are. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn me off so that we can actually. So I'm going to leave the studio. Turn me off so that we can actually see the riders on the profile. So I can do that by simply switching to the RGT live stream view rather than the current studio view. Now, one of the things I'm doing with my stream is I'm trying to upgrade. I've already upgraded my header banner on YouTube, but I'm trying to upgrade various parts of my stream to make it a little bit more professional looking. And as I go forward, obviously I want to do more streaming, which is why I'm really hoping RGT will sort out a proper broadcasting view for us, not just me, but others. And to that end, I'm just improving different aspects of the whole studio and broadcast. And one of the things that I'm pretty proud of is I've managed to put together a nice transition between the different scenes in my studio. And so you can see I'm sat here now and showing on screen. Now watch what happens when I do the transition. And the transition itself is really nice. You get the sound of the wheel ticking and the graphics coming in. So I'll hit that now, and give you a look and see what it looks like. There we go, 3R and RGT. 3R is my team that I've been a member of over on Swift for, well, since Swift's inception really. And we weren't called 3R at the beginning, but yeah, it grew into 3R. And obviously I'm promoting RGT as much as I can. So that's something which I've worked on, but you can see now I've disappeared from view, because this is what I call my my RGT live stream view. It doesn't have a camera showing me in this bottom right corner. However, there is another view for when I'm riding, and you'll actually be able to see me on my bike here in the corner. So I have two cameras. I have the bike camera, which you see places me here, where the mouse is at the moment. And then I have the studio mode, which I've been using to record this broadcast with. And that records me sat in my chair at my desk. And although it places me in the same place on the graphic, on here in the corner, it's actually a different camera looking at me from a different view. So yeah, it's all coming together nicely. I just have to learn the software, because it still catches me out, and I used to be able to pull up a browser in Streamlabs, and I can't for the life of me work out how to pull up a browser on screen and interact with it in this software. And it's, you know, I've watched YouTube videos and it looks really easy, but I don't know what I'm doing wrong. So it's something I'll spend some time on this next week in between editing videos and have a look at. And talking about editing videos, I'm going to be really busy this coming week. I don't think I'm going to be doing much riding because of this cold. I'm basically not even prepared to do group rides if I'm full of cold, because the risks for somebody like me, I mean, I've gone through not only my age, but I've gone through so much treatment. My immune system is shot to bits. And so if I've got a heavy cold and I start cycling and it gets onto my chest, I could be in serious difficulty. You know, it could have serious repercussions for my overall health long term. So I'm not prepared to take the risk. I'm not prepared to ride when I'm not well, and that's why I've been off the bike so long. I mean, most people will ride with a cold. I will, if it's just your average, you know, sort of like 1, 2, 3 day cold. But this is not just your average cold. This has been more like a flu that I've had and still got. So I'm not prepared to. Prepared to ride. Okay, so you got Seegers is just coming up the top of the last climb of the day. So we'll just watch him crest the summit. And once he goes over the top, it's then a downhill run to the final flat section. I'm not so sure whether this ride, I don't know in real life whether it finishes in a velodrome or not. I can't remember, so it'll be interesting to watch the finish. It can get a little bit difficult to show the riders through the trees if it is on the velodrome, but we'll see, because they haven't digitized the velodrome, obviously. It's just a circular path around the trees. But we'll have a look. 11 kilometers for Desmef to complete, and he's obviously coming up to the climb now. So this will be hopefully the last climb he does. And then you can see Hayden's a good way back, but he's got that nice downhill coming up. So once he gets over this rise that he's on at the moment and he gets onto the downhill, he should start closing in on the finish nicely. And this poor old Jan the bot, still riding at 2.1. Just to explain, these are what we call pace partners, or bots, as they call them in RGT. And they're programmed for a certain weight and a certain watt-kilo output. So Jan rides along at 2.1, and whether he's going uphill, whether he's going downhill, the 2.1 watt-kilos hardly ever changes. It's constant. And trust me, if you were wanting to do a 2 watt-kilo ride and you stuck with Jan, you'd find it difficult because your watt-kilos would switch around. Theirs hardly ever does. I say that, and it has now because he's on the downhill, steep downhill, so it's dropped to 1.5. But on the flat and on the uphills, it just stays constantly the same. And it's quite comical, actually, because you can get on the wheel of one of these bots and just be dragged along at a nice, comfortable pace. But today's been programmed slightly too slow. 2.1, most riders are going to want to ride above that. So that's why he's out the back on his own, and we'll leave him to it. And here's our real life rider, Mr. Hayden. And he's just on the what we call the plateau section before he hits that downhill you can see on the graphic. And my paddle is working now, so Desmef is coming to the red section, so he'll soon be hitting the climb proper. And then this is his last climb, so he's not going to. Hang on, there's 2 dots in front of him. Ah, Brill. Now, this is not the same Brill we had earlier. Earlier we had the, how can I put this diplomatically? We had the male half of the equation. This is the female. I don't know whether they're partners, I don't know whether they're even relatives. But yeah, we had Brill earlier on, the male, and this is Brill, the female. And the other day they were riding together, the two of them, in the same outfit. Now I noticed today that the Brill that was riding earlier wasn't wearing this same kit. So I don't know. I don't know whether it's the same one I saw the other day when the two of them were riding, or whether we've got a few riders with that name. But there you go. Join for the last 10 kilometers, because you can see he's done 1 kilometer and 9 to go. So Brill has joined for the last 10 kilometers. Hopefully, she's not going to influence the finish of Desmef, and I don't think she will, because she's going to finish in front of him. He's 2 kilometers behind. So you've got up the front, you've got Sagers, and she's not going to catch Sagers, I don't think. So he's going to be the first rider to cross the line. But in my opinion, I can't call him first finisher because he hasn't ridden the full distance. He'll have ridden 32 kilometers, 33. Brill will have ridden 10, and Desmef will have ridden the full 99.98 or whatever it was, 99.8. Oh, and there's my alarm going off to tell me. Now this should be the last time, as Desmef is on that steep uphill. This should be the last time I need to jump on the bike. So hopefully I'll watch my Watts and Cadence appear for the last time tonight. There's my Watts. Now where's my Cadence? Come on, there we go, there's my Cadence. So that's me done. I shouldn't need to jump on again now because I'm pretty sure both these riders are going to get to the finish. just to have a look. Yeah, nice Segas. Putting out some good wattage, but then, you know, fresh legs. He hasn't done the sort of like 80 odd kilometres that, excuse me, 90 kilometres that Desmef has done. And Desmef is still putting out 3 watt kilo. Good ride. Now, whoa. Ah, that's why he's showing 0. I was just beginning to worry then, Hayden. I saw your figures at 0 and I thought, oh no. But thankfully you were just freewheeling. And nobody can blame you, mate, at this point in the ride. I'd definitely be freewheeling. Oh dear. I used to do rides like this for fun when I was training for my endurance cycling, but I couldn't do this for fun anymore. This would be a real serious effort for me these days. You know, this wouldn't have even uh, appeared on my radar 18 months ago, but there you go. Yeah, looking good. And Desmef is now on the plateau at the top, so yeah, all the hard work's done now, mate. 9.9 kilometers to go, and the majority of that is downhill. So, and it's a fast finish. So here we go. 3:23. So, yeah, it's a long ride. I said it was going to be. And Hayden has actually closed up the gap somewhat because you can see from the distance left to complete that he's eating into. It was out at 8 kilometers, and I think it's about 6 now. So, yeah, well done, sir. I can smell my tea cooking, so I'm going to be able to go away and have my tea. Yeah, 9.1 kilometers left. And look at the elevation, 1957 meters climbed. I mean, that's just insane. Almost 2,000 meters of elevation. That's a hard day out for anybody. Now we'll capture these two off the front. We'll capture them going into the finish. It's only fair. They've done a good section of the ride, so we'll get them coming into the finish. Noticeable difference in speed, though, isn't there? And the riders. Mind you, these riders are on the downhill now. I mean, this is pretty steep downhill. No, not going to take them long to close this one up. Let's just zoom out a bit so we can get a better look at the terrain as well. Spin the camera around. Oh, I didn't know you could do that. Can you see that ah, now then, that's something, I've learned something new. I didn't realize that you could scroll the chat. Wow. Hey. I mean, there hasn't been too much chat today, so I haven't needed to do it, but I didn't realize you could do it. And I've got it, I've now sorted myself out a way of putting the chat on a on a separate second monitor. So I can follow the chat fairly easily now without having to try and read it off my small iPhone. I can actually put it up on screen. Hmm. Seegers is working really nicely on this downhill section, but now he's coming into the. I'm going to stay with him because I want to find out whether this is a velodrome finish. And the way that I'll be able to tell, because obviously RGT can't digitize a velodrome, we've just got this countryside graphics pack. But if it's going around in a uniform circle, then I'll know that it's meant to be, they've followed the contours of the original ride, and it is a velodrome finish. I can't remember whether Liege-Bastogne-Liege is a velodrome finish. Because and the only reason why I need to know is because um, we had a velodrome finish in the race last weekend, and it caused problems in that we had to go under the finish banner twice, and that confused the riders. It certainly confused me. Here we come. We're coming up to the kite now. The 1 kilometre to go banner, and entering Liège. I don't think it is a velodrome. So this is the red kite that he's approaching now, that you can see. There we go. So 1 kilometre to ride. It's looking nice. It's definitely not a velodrome finish. And greeted by the rain, which is just miraculously stopped. I wonder how much resources the digitising the rain causes, because I do notice that it's only very, very short sections here on RGT. On Swift, you can have it going on for quite some time, but here on RGT, it only seems to happen for a few seconds. So I wonder if there is a knock to the CPU performance with it. And here's the finish, and Sega's giving it a sprint finish. Look, 9.1 watt kilos, 9.6. Well done, Seegers. Okay, let's get to the next one. So there's Brill. Now, Brill will be approaching the, there we go, there's the banner. So Brill's approaching the finish banner. I wonder where they get comments about their name, because in England or in the UK, Brill is short for brilliant. It's, we say, oh, it's Brill, or this is Brill, that's Brill, meaning it's brilliant. We use it as a moniker for the full word. So it's quite a novel name. Okay, we'll switch the view around. You can see the finish banner. And again, the rain at the same point, look. So obviously the rain comes in at 600 meters, but it only lasts like a few seconds. 600, 500, 400 maybe. Yeah, there you go. So 160 meters the rain lasts for. Well, that's a nice 10 kilometers to complete your day out, Miss Brill. Well done. And there we go, under the line. So next ride on the road with 2.3 to go and really hammering the downhill. I mean, look at the wattage he's putting out. Well done, sir. Is the rider of the day without a doubt. Like I say, I really would have liked him and Isator to have had a battle for the finish, but all things considered, this has been a superb ride by this fella. And I've certainly enjoyed watching it. There's the kite ahead. And the Liège sign nicely at the side of the road. I've never done the full route. I've done most of the route in different parts, but I've never ridden the whole route. I did part of it in training. I remember when I was training that part of the country for the TCR. So there we go. There's the red kite. 1 kilometre to go. Starts to hit the rain, isn't it? Yep, there we go. So this is our first genuine man home, cyclist home, because the other two were doing shorter distances, much shorter distances. So you can see from the graphic 99.99 or whatever. Superb effort. Superb ride, 3:37. So that's a good day out. What an effort. Fabulous, sir. Well done. Top marks. Okay, and let's have a look and see what Mr. Hayden's doing. Okay, so it hasn't really got on the climb yet. He's still got the very steep section to go. So I don't envy you this next bit at this point in the ride. Because legs will be hurting and tight. Might be starting with a little bit of cramp if you haven't drunk enough. Or even if you've drunk enough sometimes. Excuse me. So I don't know how many people will be still with me and watching the broadcast, or how many people will stay this long when they join the broadcast later on, or join the view later on. But if you are, please consider liking the video and hit that subscribe button. It will help me grow the channel, and I think I deserve a medal for sitting here for 3 hours 40 minutes at the moment and still going. So I certainly do my bit for RGT. So give me a like and subscribe to the channel. Help me make it grow. And we'll see you in the next one. Now, obviously, I'm going to be downloading these videos and editing them into highlights programs. So you won't have to sit through 3 hours, 50 minutes or whatever it's going to be of a video to watch them all. I'm going to try and get the highlights videos down to about 15-20 minutes each. So short and sweet videos with all the necessary action, highlights, and I'll be doing a complete what's the word? I'll be doing separate commentary on them. I won't be using my existing commentary, maybe snippets of it where I tend to get a bit excited, but generally I'll be doing a completely new commentary on it, because when you're cutting videos down to such an extent, you need the audio to flow with the what's happening on screen. So I'll be re-recording the audio, probably better quality as well, as Hayden starts to get to the steepest part of the climb. You're nearly there, sir, nearly there, 7.7, but he's nearly there now, almost to the top. And then once he rolls over the top, as I say, we've watched the others. Here we go, here's the steepest section. So once he goes over the top, it's all downhill to the finish. It's not a difficult finish. But 9.4 at this point must really hurt the legs. And yet look at the power he's putting out. The guy's, full credit to him. Don't think I could have ridden 90 kilometers and still be putting out 4.2. He turned red there for a second. 4.2 watt kilo. Yes, when I'm at my prime, but not at the moment. I'll be lucky if I manage to hang off the back of the group rides when I manage to get back on them again. I am certainly well out of shape at the moment. I don't like being off the bike for too long, because riding for me is more than just the exercise. It helps me cope mentally as well. So I really miss it. When I can't do it, it's very difficult. I'm actually finding that doing this commentary and race broadcasts is helping, because I think without something like this, without becoming involved, I would really struggle with my mental health. But cycling has been my way of coping for a long, long time now. I mean, I set off in 20, when was it? 20, I can't even remember anymore. Was it 2012? I set off in October 2012 to cycle around the world, not having a clue where I was going. I just headed into Europe, and then I thought, well, we'll see where we go from Europe. And 2.5 years later, I was still cycling. So, oh, and there's another alarm, and I am going to have to jump on the bike, because I think Mr. Hayden is going to take more than another 5 minutes to finish. So we'll jump on the bike for the last time. But I was kind of hoping that I wouldn't have to, but I don't want to miss. That would be very, very unfair if I missed Hayden coming into the finish after the effort he's put in. But yeah, I cycled all the way around the world, and I'm going to be doing a blog about it one day. I've been wanting to write the book and do the story for a while, but I just haven't been in the right place mentally to cope with the story, because it's quite traumatic and quite dramatic as well. So yeah, we'll get round to it, telling the story, and that's where my mental strength has come from in terms of when I got back into serious endurance riding, when I decided, I wanted to take part in the transcontinental race, and I wanted to. In 2016, I broke the Swift distance record um, at the European Bike Show, and to do that kind of thing, as I said previously, takes great mental strength. You can't sit on a bike for 3 days and not have great fortitude and mental strength. Um, and to be honest, it was easy. And I say that not being big-headed. It was easy because my my trip around the world had instilled in me a don't give up kind of attitude. I mean, I was told I was dying. I was told I didn't have much longer to live, and so I set off and cycled around the world and proved the doctors wrong. So to come back from that kind of thing gave me great mental strength. Um, and I think I've always been a bit strong in that department because I came from a very abusive background in my childhood. Brought up in children's homes and all sorts of horrible things happened. I spent a long time trying to cope with bullying. So for me, um, move forward all these years, and the final sort of thing I had to cope with was the loss of, losing my wife to cancer, and I just sunk into depression. And that was hard to deal with. That was in 2009, and then I lost my wife to cancer very very quickly. It was very sudden, um, even though both of us had been battling it for quite a few years, and I lost her very very suddenly, and I found that very difficult to cope with. But then 2 days after um, my wife died of cancer, my only remaining sister died. The police knocked on my door 2 days later. So I had to deal with two of the people I loved most in the world dying within 2 days of each other. And I couldn't cope. I just broke down completely. So for me, although it didn't happen till a few years later, when I set off and decided to cycle around the world, for me it was like, I had major demons to deal with, and I did. I went from being a person I hated myself. I really did have a lot of self-loathing, to being a person that I grew to love, and I became a better person. And there's a lot of people will give testament to that. I changed dramatically from the person I was into a much better person. And that's from, you know, experiencing and living with different cultures and people, and just realizing that, you don't need possessions and money to get joy out of life. And it was an eye opener, and it's the best thing one of the best things I've done in my whole life was setting off and cycling around the world. So for any youngsters listening, if there's anybody listening, for any youngsters, you know, if you get the opportunity to take a time out, you know, to pack in your job and go and explore, you will learn more from cycling around the world than what you ever will in college. I can guarantee you that. Because I'm self-taught anyway. Everything, you know, I was a computer programmer, a professional photographer, and I had no training in either. I'm self-taught in almost everything I've ever turned my hand to. Um, find something I'm good at and I stick with it. But for anybody who's in a bit of a rut and wants to find themselves, get off and cycle around the world because it will change your life. Anyway, that's enough of me wittering on, as Mr. Hayden has got 6 kilometres to complete towards the end of the ride. It's a bit of a lonely place to be broadcasting with one rider on the road waiting for him to come in home all on his own. Can't think of many people that would have stuck this out, but and I'm talking about him as a rider and me as a broadcaster. But I think it's only fair to stay with him. 94 kilometres in his legs and he's still going. And just to move on with the cycling theme, on Monday nights, so tomorrow, I cover the cycling time trials 10 mile evening 10. Now it's a short race. It only lasts generally about half an hour or 40 minutes or so. I catch all the riders going off the line. What happens is it's 1900 hours GMT, so 8 o'clock here in the Netherlands, and the riders go off at 10-second intervals. So I cover all the riders leaving the line, and then I dip in and out of the riders on the road as much as I possibly can, but I catch every rider going over the line, and we've had 21 minute finishes and a 22 as well. So the winning times have been 21 and 22 minutes over the last few weeks. Some really good rides. And time trialing is known as the race of truth because you're not racing against other riders, you're racing against yourself and trying to improve your best time every week. And so we see the same riders returning week after week. Really good event. RGT spectate mode does lend itself nicely to that type of event. The race coverage and following the riders on the road looks really good in a time trial. So I enjoy doing it. It's good coverage. So that's tomorrow night at 1900 hours GMT, 2000 hours CET. And then on Tuesday, we have the Team 3R, which is my team, the Team 3R group rides. And they're a very social event. I sometimes get Lou Ricks and Riley joining in the rides and a few other regulars like Luke Jeffries. But I'm not sure I'm going to be well enough to ride on Tuesday. And if I'm not, then one of the others will take over. Either Riley, Lou, or Luke Jeffries. I'll ask one of them to lead the ride. And the way the ride works is you can ride at your own pace because the group will probably ride at whatever pace the majority of the riders want to do. But I also program in pace partners or these RGT bots, and I program them in from like 1 kilo 1 watt kilo, all the way up to 4. So there's a pace for everybody, just over 4 actually. So there's pace for absolutely everybody if you're going to join our group rides. I mean, it's nice when riders stay together in the groups, and when I'm there and Lou and the rest of them, and usually Luke and Rob Stone, who's capable of much higher wattage, comes and joins me. Then he pulls me along nicely most weeks, and we stay together. And it's a really good social event. So that's on the Tuesday, and that's at 1900 GMT, 2000 CET, and we repeat that on the Thursday. But the Thursday tends to be sometimes a little bit pacier, depending on who's joining. But again, we have pace partners, and we have groups forming. So you'll always find somebody to ride with. There'll always be, if it's not me, then there'll be another group, or there'll be the pace partners riding at a comfortable pace for you. And they're the 2 rides currently I lead on RGT. As I say, I'm not so sure about this next week. If I'm well enough, then certainly I will. Come on, Hayden, don't stop here. Hey, not with 2 kilometres to go. Come on. Finish the ride. I haven't sat here for 4 hours almost to see you not finish the ride. Oh, come on. Why is he pulling over? No, I'm not happy with this. I'm not happy. And he stopped because his heart rate's gone. Okay, well, I'm definitely not happy with that. I've sat here waiting for him to finish, and with 1.8 kilometres to go, he stopped. Now, there could be a good reason for it, but okay. Right then, folks, that ends the broadcast. As I say, check out tomorrow night on the CTT 10-mile time trials. Details on the RGT cycling users website. Facebook page. You can find details of the Team 3R rides on the Team 3R on RGT Facebook page. A link you'll find again on the RGT cycling users. So hit me up, join the group if you're not already a member, and then you'll get notification of all the events taking place. I'm going to call it a night. It's my tea time with the children. And if you're still watching, thanks for doing so. Hit the like button, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and we'll catch you in the next one. Thanks again, stay safe, and we'll see you later.